know what that's going to happen, right? That he's going to survive magically survive like assassination attempt number 13 or whatever. It's amazing. Right. Putin is the greatest FSB assassin in history. He just manages to never kill anybody.
That's when I knew the war was coming. It was like 2 days before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And there was an article in a major publication. It was like, actually, war makes the U.S. safer long-term and is profitable and better for the economy. I was like, wait, what? You can individually profit quite a bit if you're allowed to. Yeah. The spoils of war has been around forever. And especially, and that was often the incentive for independent, we'll call them mercenaries, but independent warriors who you would recruit to your side was, yeah, by the way, you keep what you take, you keep what you kill, you keep what you take, whatever you can raid. I mean, if you can raid some stuff and sell it back to Ukraine, get some Russian tanks over.
Best used to be the Swiss because they're up in the mountains. I mean, that's how the Swiss Guard came to be the Swiss Guard for the Vatican. They were the old great Swiss mercenaries.
I'm full communist on this issue. Just that one issue, though. Those two issues, to be fair. Even my kid, who's 14, does not. They don't go to a public school or anything like that. And he was talking to me the other day, and he's like, "Dad, do you see those Ukrainians just go ahead and take tractors and defeat a bunch of tanks?" And I was like, "Tell me more about this." And it's like, yeah, they went out there and they found these tanks, and so they just used tractors and towed them away. It was awesome. And I was like, I mean, that's kind of funny, I guess. And I read the story about the Ukrainian farmer who found like a surface to air missile launcher system on his property. And it's like, well, that's cool. But if that propagandizing story is to be believed, then why are we sitting here pretending that Ukraine needs any help at all? I mean, they've clearly got it under control. The Russians are fleeing all over the place.
Exactly.
They're abandoning.
Can't fight. They're all just going to quit anyway. So why do they need $15 billion in CIA camps and recruitments? Yeah. And I mean, like the giveaway early for the Ukrainians, aside from the fact that the Ukrainian president could care less about the Ukrainian people by what he's doing. I mean, imagine if we were invaded. Would you feel good if the president came out and said, okay, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to invite random mercenaries from all over the world to come in. Okay. Invitation to random psychopaths to be in my neighborhood. That's step one. Number two, just in case you weren't happy with those psychopaths, we're going to hand out guns to the local gangs. So, that's going to be number two, machine guns in particular. And then third, but that might be enough. We're going to find all the psychopaths in our prisons and we're going to release them. Because don't worry, they'll definitely come fight for the country that locked them up. They won't go and do a bunch of psychopathic criminal stuff. No, of course not. I was like, these are some of the worst ideas I've ever seen in the history of defending your country, particularly if you care about your people. And all these little Redditors are cheering it, and the Twitterers are cheering. It's like, oh my! It's like when Hunter Thompson used to get written after he wrote Hell's Angels, and these like random like housewives, little wine wives would say she really wanted to meet some of them, and he would write back and he'd be like, "Are you insane? Do you understand who they are?" And he's like, okay, fine, I'll introduce you. I mean, it's like, you're nuts. It's the same mindset that we're seeing. I mean, the West just celebrating it just sort of reflexively. Anybody who raises a question is screamed and yelled at. I mean, it is sad to see the anti-war libertarian right in the court of public opinion is still present, and in Rand Paul and Thomas Massie is still present in the House and the Senate. Madison Cawthorn represents the populist wing in the House. Marjorie Taylor Greene is too busy cashing those defense stocks. I mean, she's like the number one winner on a bunch of stocks from defense-related stocks.
And oil-related stocks.
And oil-related that just coincidentally tie into her saying, I stand with Ukraine. Right. She says, don't worry, it's all behind a blind trust. It always reminds me about all politicians' blind trust. They're Venetian blinds. You can just take a little peek now and then when you need to.
That's actually true. And people may not realize it, but it is perfectly legal for Congress to insider trade, and their blind trusts are all entirely voluntary. They're propagandized and they're not regulated. So
not at all.
They can call up their blind trust trustee at any moment and say, hey, what's going on in my account? Can you look at this? Can you look at that? And it's blind so long as they want it to be blind, but there's nothing actually requiring them to have a blind trust. Whereas, someone like, even a president would be required to have a blind trust due to, potentially.
Only sort of. I mean,
Essentially.
LBJ
Yeah.
notoriously didn't. JFK kind of did, kind of didn't. Trump did it because he didn't want all the whining, the
Still
incessant.
got it.
He
Still
got the
got all the
incessant
whining.
whining anyway.
Yeah.
The
Emoluments. You don't even know that word. You did not know that word last week. Stop it.
No. It's the same people who still can't find Ukraine on a map. That was one of my favorite polls, was the more somebody could answer correctly just very basic geographic and historical questions about Ukraine, the more likely they were like, no, not interested in getting involved in that war. Not interested. The less they knew, the more they confused it with, wherever China is on the globe, the more they're like war, wherever, or any other country. But it has been sad to watch the death of the anti-war left is still out there in the court of public opinion. Aaron Mate, Max Blumenthal, Glenn Greenwald, Jimmy Dore, Tulsi Gabbard, all of that crowd, but not anywhere in the halls of Congress or the Senate. I mean, it's sad to see how much the Clintons have purged the party. Gabbard was sort of the last one. Now she's gone outside the House. There's like, who in the House is going to stand? It's like something that's been a noble tradition since at least 1960. I mean, the Republicans historically were the non-interventionists since 1870. You go back to, but there were at least some socialists. Eugene V. Debs, a congressman from Milwaukee, went to jail because he opposed World War I. Where are these people? They're gone on the left, which is kind of sad to see. And Sean Penn is over there doing films about, Zelensky make, what that's going to happen, right? He's going to survive magically survive like assassination attempt number 13 or whatever. It's amazing. Right. Putin is the greatest FSB assassin in history. He just manages to never kill anybody. He uses this really lethal poison that just poisons them, but somehow doesn't kill them. People should use some common sense, but
I've developed a tolerance to iocane powder, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. It was Princess Bride. They did all the poisons so that it didn't matter which poison it was, had the tolerance. But is that they'll probably have Zelensky escape.
They just have Keith Richards' blood in a spigot.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm poisoned. Keith, hook me up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is the one
guy. You got
guy
something in there that can purify this.
Survive a nuclear war. But at the one of the people on my locals page was like, I was asking for ideas. I was like, okay, you're writing the script. This is basically real life Wag the Dog. We have a bunch of kids who grew up watching West Wing, so they think everything's a script anyway. Zelensky's literally an actor. An actor's done nothing in politics his whole life until he was put in the presidency. The levels of insanity on this are just off the. You couldn't write this as parody and people believe you because they'd say, not credible enough. I was like, if you're writing the Wag the Dog ending, how do you get Zelensky out of there but still be a patriotic hero so he can cash in on the West with some reality TV deals? He's already got a whole bunch of secret cash hoards, and he's got the Batista parachute package that Batista had after he left Cuba, lived a very nice life in Miami for decades afterwards. He was like, I was like, how do you set up the premise? Like a believable premise, not the bad ones we've had so far in the Ukrainian war with bad propaganda, but believable. How do you get him out of there and he's still a hero? And somebody came up with, he escapes magically the last Putin assassination attempt. Yeah. And it's like Casablanca. He flees for his country. Doesn't flee from his country, even though he's fleeing from his country. He flees for his country, Casablanca style, after he escapes one last assassination attempt, lands in the United States, and he's up on reality TV, HBO and Showtime next week with Sean Penn.
That's a good gig. I'd do it.
Yeah, I'm in. Why not?
I'm in. Put me in as president of the Ukraine for 30 seconds. We'll solve this.
Remember, Vindman was going to be the defense secretary from Ukraine, the guy who led the impeachment effort against Trump. That he was given the defense secretary gig. I was like, what does it tell you about that country? That they're just giving this dimwit with his twin dim-witted brother the opportunity to run their defense when he's from America. I mean, does that tell you who's really running the show there?
Yeah. What do any of these people know about that country? Like what? Anyway. So yeah, that's the state we find ourselves in, of course, is in the midst of this very strange, very sudden war with awkward timing, a lot of propaganda around it.
But at least Juicy got out because it turned out the Russians were the ones who beat him up. So he got out on bail tonight.
Very dark-skinned Russians. So yeah.
Well, it's kind of like Dr. Strangelove, right? He couldn't help himself with his arm.
Yep.
The Peter Sellers, brilliant. What, he play like 4 characters in that film? I mean, it's an apt time to watch Dr. Strangelove when we have blue checkmark media people saying, yeah, nuclear war, we can manage that. And you're seeing people at think tanks write these little Twitter threads, how maybe a nuclear war would be sustainable. It's like where in the world are these nut
It's
jobs?
green. It's green, Barnes. It's green.
That's when I knew the war was coming. It was like 2 days before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and there was an article in a major publication. It was like, actually, war makes the U.S. safer long term and is profitable and better for the economy. I was like, wait, what? Where did this come from? Iraq and Afghanistan would like to know your location. And then, but this was a legitimate piece in a major public, like, and I'm talking like New York Times or LA Times or something like that. And I was like, oh shit, war's coming. I only hope we're not like fully in it. I'm waiting for that announcement, by the way. Do you think it's going to come?
All it takes is a stray something into Poland or Romania or something like that. And,
And they're just escalating and escalating. I mean, Ukraine has those old Soviet fortifications from the days of when they were waiting for NATO. So the Russians are not going to be eager to go into any of these cities. So if we keep sending in arms and people, we can drag it out. I mean, that's the CIA's objective. They want to make it the second Afghanistan. They've said so. They're still, embarrassed by their own Afghanistan, so they want to recreate the old Soviet one, but just do it in Ukraine. They could care less about the people of Ukraine. They don't care. I mean, if we had anybody that actually cared about the people of Ukraine, they would have had Zelensky to the table and settled this a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Heck, they would have settled this before the war ever started. There wouldn't have been a war. There's only a war because of our deep state people.
But Barnes, we got to send the right people because clearly our Reddit brigade didn't do well if you weren't following that whole.
That was classic. I couldn't believe I was witnessing this in live time. Like, I get some of the mercs, some of the hardcore U.S. military guys that got exited early. Some of those guys, this is all they do. This is what they know. Okay, fine. They know what they're doing. They know what they're getting into one way or the other. I think they're making a mistake, but hey, that's their business.
Well, and you can individually profit quite a bit if you're allowed to. Yeah. The spoils of war has been around forever, and especially and that was often the incentive for independent, we'll call them mercenaries, but independent warriors who you would recruit to your side was, by the way, you keep what you take, you keep what you kill, you keep what you take, whatever you can raid. I mean, if you can raid some stuff and sell it back to Ukraine, get some Russian tanks over.
Best used to be the Swiss because they're up in the mountains. I mean, that's how the Swiss Guard came to be the Swiss Guard for the Vatican. Is they were the old great Swiss mercenaries. They'd come down, wage war, go home, make their money. And there's private armies all around the world. The Russians have their own. The Chinese have their own. Of course, we have many Americans. You make a lot more money working in the private security, private military space than you do, especially if you're less ethical. I mean, then you can really make some cash. But we were recruiting, we were getting kids from Reddit. I mean, these people who had no idea what they were, who believed every piece of propaganda. There's still people who still believe in the ghost of Kiev. It's like I can't be this.
I have a controversial position. Okay. I think Ukraine should draft all of Reddit, every single Redditor.
Yeah,
who's posted like in the past 12 months.
Send all the Antifa people over there.
Every one of them should be forced.
Hope that works out for them. And especially all of this sort of taunting by the West of Russia. It's like, I mean, let's say you actually believed that. I mean, I think it's almost all fake news. But if you believe they were struggling and having trouble, and you believe that they are this insecure, ego-driven, narcissistic Putin, then what do you think would happen by you doing what you're doing? I mean, they still have a bunch of nuclear weapons. They still, as the little Redditor warriors found out, they can drop those precision bombs right where you're camping out on the Polish border.
I heard the Russian economy is going to be crushed, and they won't be able to fight a war once their economy is crushed.
In fact, it's going to be crushed any week now. According to these experts, the Woodrow Wilson Institute, some of these think tanks, it was already supposed to be crushed. They paid no attention to the fact that Russians, you can follow YouTubers, the ones that are still on YouTube. The YouTube hasn't figured out a Russian. Are just these like outdoor guys that do guides in the outdoors, and they've been going around showing what the cost of food and fuel is and how it hasn't gone up at all. And of course, it didn't go up at all because people confuse basic economics. There's a difference between the ruble's value against the dollar and the ruble's value internally. Right. Our inflation problem is an internal problem. Right, that's different than the dollar could even be strong globally, and we have an inflation problem. the dollar could be weak globally, and we could have a domestic inflation problem because we have two different worlds where the dollar exists. The same is true of the ruble. The ruble, all we did was make it much cheaper for all of their exports, right? Because all of their expenses are in rubles, and all of their income is not in rubles. It's going to be, I mean, maybe now it's going to be in gold or be in rupees or be in yuan or be in something else or be in
yuan, more likely, Robert, because
Yep.
they've had those agreements with China in place for months now. I mean, I covered this like 6 months ago when they were putting these in place.
Now the Saudis are going to price oil in yuan, and what other people
are India's thinking about going over to Mirs, which is the Chinese and the Russian, well, the Russian system, but
they're talking about working together to create one economy one currency that they're all interactive with. Mm-hmm. And the problem, like people like I get these. I didn't realize how much our Western elites. I mean, I went to school with a lot of these kids, but I didn't realize well, they've always been dumb, but I didn't realize they're living in the 1990s. Like they think China's still weak. You can see that with how Blinken approached everything. So they really think that China is like it was in 1995 when it was 2% of the world's GDP. Now it's close to 20% of the world's GDP. It's the number one manufacturing economy in the world. If you want to look at a map and see where Saudi sells oil and where everyone else sells oil, they're selling to China more than they're selling to the United States. And so that's where what China wants matters more to a lot of oil makers than what America wants. And that's why UAE and Saudis aren't returning Biden's calls. Also, they don't like being harassed when, hey, look, sometimes they got to chop some heads. They don't want anybody complaining about it. That's an old Arab tradition going back a few centuries. There is
a potential benefit to India, benefit for Ukraine, for India joining up with Russia and pricing stuff in rubles, is that all of those scam tech support calls are going to be suddenly made. I don't know how to speak Russian with an Indian accent, but I'm sure that's going to be that's the crash course right now in India. Is like, here's your Russian script, start memorizing this phonetically. And if they ask any questions, just hang up and call the next Russian, please. But can you imagine
some of the grifts that are out there, like I'm going to go out and fight for Ukraine. Here's my GoFundMe. Come on, man.
It's brazen.
Oh,
Can you imagine the Russian tank driver is like trying to drive the tank and his cell phone rings and he's actually like, hello, I'd like to talk to you about car insurance. Your warranty is about to expire.
Oh my God.
What did your
selling insurance on the OnlyFans accounts? It's like, I guarantee you at least 3 private booby sales and at least 1.
Well, it's also fascinating.
Sorry, I can't do it.
In the middle of a war, we have someone like Putin talking about global culture wars.
God.
Like he did his whole thing today. He's like, hey, you can have all your yachts in Monaco and your vacation homes in Paris. God bless you. But I've been telling you not to do it. And if it's gone now, well, that's probably better because you probably should have been here anyway. But he throws in there, you can go over there and be whatever gender you want to be. But here in Russia, not so much. It's like
no homosexuals in Russia.
Yeah,
that was the quote, right? That was the quote, right? Yeah.
Ukraine has the good interesting transgender policy as well. No, actually, you're still men. Here, have gun.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
please don't use on self
because of the mass conscriptions. I mean, they're blocking people at the border. If you look like you're able, they're not letting you cross. They're forcing you to mass conscript. That was the other sign. I was like, they're winning the war so well, and the Russians are falling apart so badly that they're grabbing 60-year-old guys off the bus and sticking them in a gun with them and telling them they got to go fight. But it was kind of, I mean, there was all the memes out there about, feminists are real feminists until conscription time comes around. And it's like, no, I'm a woman. I'm good over here. I don't need to go over there. Though the Ukrainians were bragging about the number of women in their military. But I was like, that means that you don't have as many men as you need in the military, to be blunt about it. Having women involved is understandable. Having them be close to 40% of your soldiers tells me you don't have many soldiers.
The Eastern European military should all just be Femen. That's it. They should all be associated with Femen. I fully support. Femen is my favorite feminist organization. I support every message of theirs thoroughly, and because there's nothing else supporting their message, if you know what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. There's nothing else supporting their message, but I am there to support Femen's message 100% of the time. Putin's a big fan of Femen too. There's that legendary clip. Have you seen that? Have you guys seen?
I've seen the karaoke of Putin singing Blueberry Hill, but I haven't seen this other one.
Okay, hold on. So this is one of the only clips of Femen you can actually play on YouTube. But
well, it's a good clip then.
I still don't even know what this is.
I don't know
You
what
don't know
it is.
what
either.
Femen is?
No.
It sounds like semen, so I'm concerned.
This was like the whole balls no balls question. I was like, I don't think I want to know what the backstory is.
Welcome to the internet, Robert.
Femen is they're a group of radical feminists, socialists, commie, leftists, whatever. And they're so radical that they don't wear clothes. That's how they get their message across, by being naked and riding on their body.
Like Parisian protesters. Every time there's a protest, feminists go out and flash everybody, and it's like, good protest.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Here we've got.
Might make it tough with the need for body armor, but
here we go.
Well, the French female protesters, let's just say, look a little more pleasant than some of the wokesters.
A lot of well, yeah, that's why I support the Eastern European ones as well. Femen has a strong French presence. Here we go. Here's the gif of. So you see it. Watch Putin though.
Right.
Oh my God!
Thumbs up. Hey.
Привет,
I was like, I mean, you can see why the elites hate Putin, but you can see why the ordinary Russian loves the guy. Right? He's like, yes, he's giving him 2 thumbs up. Look at that.
Yeah.
2 thumbs. He's like, that's great.
He does it for the memes. Like, this is now a meme for him,
Yes, of course.
Yeah. This is old. This has been around forever, but it's so good. She just his bodyguards are running and he's like, hey.
Yeah, baby.
I'm with it.
That is classic. That was worth it by itself.
That's what I'm saying. I am out there to support Femen because there's nothing else supporting them. And I'm there for them. I fully agree. I'm full communist on this issue. Just that one issue though. Those 2 issues, to be fair. Okay, but we were talking about Juicy. Juicy's out.
Oh my God.